Thank you, Daniela and Morton and all the organizers for this amazing opportunity. I'm Kaz, I'm from Adam Antebi's lab, and today I'd like to talk to you about restoring biological age. So we all know from pioneering work in the aging field that aging is a malleable process. And now with iPS reprogramming, we also know that biological age can be reversed. And we were really intrigued with this concept, and we're wondering whether there's any other potentially natural contexts of biological age restoration, especially in an adult organism. So we were really interested in the potential of this hibernation-like state called adult reproductive diapause, which the worm C. elegans can enter into if it faces starvation during late larval development. So it can actually continue to develop into an adult and shows signs of reproductive maturity and signs of adulthood. And it enters into this highly resilient state where it can live for 50 days compared to the normal 20-day ad libitum fed lifespan. But even in this resilient state, the worm actually shows these phenotypic signs of aging. However, what's remarkable is that when they're reintroduced to food, they can regrow their body, they can recover their reproductive ability, and then they also can live a very comparable lifespan to the ad libitum 20 days again. So we think that during this refeeding process, whatever age-related changes or damages accumulated during this adult reproductive diapause, they're being repaired or restored during this refeeding process. And as one sign of cellular repair, we see these shrunken muscle cells with very limited mitochondria, which are really expanding and being filled with mitochondria upon refeeding. So the specific research question that we're interested in is, what are the genes and mechanisms regulating resilience during adult reproductive diapause, as well as what's regulating this restoration process during refeeding? But first, we really want to know what's happening with biological age during adult reproductive diapause and upon refeeding. So for this, we use the bit age clock developed by David Meyer and Bjorn Schumacher, who are at this conference. And when we applied this clock, what we actually see is that there's actually a progressive increase in biological age, along with progression during ARD. And what we see is this positive correlation in the differentially expressed genes happening during adult reproductive diapause as well as normative aging. So for example, genes here, we see these are genes that are upregulated during the normative aging process, but also they are upregulated during the ARD aging process, suggesting that the changes that are happening during adult reproductive diapause are more similar than different compared to the normative aging process. And we're really excited to see what happens during refeeding. And what actually happens here is that we see that the biological age prediction is actually strongly reduced. And what we see is that the adult reproductive diapause worm at 10 days is predicted to be around 6 days, according to this clock, but then it gets reduced to about 1 day upon refeeding. And this refed worm is actually chronologically older than this adult reproductive diapause sample by 1 day. So it's 10 days versus 11 days chronologically, but biologically, it's going back to this very youthful day 1 adult stage. So we think this is a really unique experimental paradigm where we can explore the biology of age restoration in an adult organism. And now when we do this correlation analysis again between refeeding and also normative aging, now here we see genes where the gene is going up during the normative aging process, but then upon refeeding, the gene is going down. So it's not even a blunting of the aging response. It's actually a complete sign reversal in terms of this overall trend. So this is also suggestive that this is a really restorative process. So naturally, we were really interested in what are the genes that are regulating this fasting to refeeding switch. And what we see actually is when we do an RNAi screen looking at genes that were differentially expressed during refeeding, we see that some genes, when we knock them down during refeeding, they impair recovery, and others, they improve recovery. And we found this gene called HIL1, which actually, when knocked down during refeeding, is improving the restoration of the body size. And we use body size as a measure for how the worms are reaccessing youthful genetic programs related to growth, repair, and regeneration. And this gene called HIL1 is actually a linker histone, which is a protein that can bind to the core histones. It's not part of the core histones, but can bind and also bind to DNA and regulate transcription in a variety of ways. And what we see is that when we knock down HIL1, specifically during the refeeding process, it improves restoration of body size, it improves restoration of the muscle and the muscle filaments inside. It also improves the restoration of motility, so how well the worms are moving. And when we measure what are the differentially expressed genes downstream of HIL1, we see that many genes, both up and down regulated, especially in metabolic pathways that are differentially regulated, and we think some of these pathways are involved in the downstream mechanism of HIL1 knockdown. So HIL1 is actually very lowly expressed during the fed condition, and then it's getting very strongly upregulated during this diapause or fasted state. And upon refeeding, actually, it's going down again. But since it is very strongly upregulated during adult reproductive diapause, we were wondering whether it also has an effect during this diapause state. And when we look at the HIL1 mutants, they're actually short-lived during adult reproductive diapause, suggesting that the worm requires this protein or this gene to maintain its full resilience during adult reproductive diapause. So when we look at where exactly on the genome HIL1 is binding to, we carried out a technique called cut-and-run chromatin profiling. We see that actually HIL1 is binding to specific regions in the genome. So it's not just a general repression or general activation, it's very specific in its binding patterns. So what we see is that it's enriched in the promoter regions of gene transcripts, as well as the transcription termination site. It's also enriched in transposable elements, as well as in intron regions compared to exons. And when we look at the transcriptional output of this, looking at the HIL1 mutant compared to wild type, we see both up and down regulation in terms of gene transcripts. However, when we look at transposable elements, we actually see a strong skew towards upregulation. And this is suggesting that HIL1 is binding normally in wild-type conditions to the transposable element, repressing the transposable element, so that in the mutant case, we see de-repression. And we also see increases in intron-retained transcripts for the HIL1 mutant. So this is suggesting now that HIL1 is binding to this intron region, and then in the mutant, we see these aberrantly spliced transcripts that are arising. So HIL1 seems to be important to be induced during adult reproductive diapause to adapt the worm's transcriptome to a more fasted state. So we were, of course, interested in whether any of these changes are evolutionarily conserved. And we also looked at fasting and refeeding in the killifish model. And what we see here, again, we were really surprised to see, is that we again see this inverse correlation between refeeding and normative aging. So again, this is suggestive that the refeeding stage is actually the age restorative time window during fasting and refeeding. And in terms of regulation of HIL1, actually there's an ortholog in humans called H1O, which is upregulated in human patients during a 3-day water-only fast. So this is really mirroring this upregulation during low nutrient conditions. And in terms of function as well, we see that when we have HIL1 or H1O knockout cells in human cell cultures under amino acid starvation, we see that they have increased incidences of cell death. So this is also similar to the HIL1 mutant not surviving as well under low nutrient contexts. So to summarize, what we see is actually a really strong reduction in biological age during the refeeding process. So many people, I think, associate fasting with anti-aging effects, but we think fasting is maybe slowing down aging, but the refeeding stage is the actual stage when restorative or potentially rejuvenatory pathways are being activated. So we think we need a good balance of optimizing both fasting but also refeeding to get the full health span benefits of intermittent fasting or fasting refeeding regimens. And we think biological age is maybe more fluid than we think, and maybe it's regulated also by nutrient status or metabolic state, and there could be periods in our lives where age is accelerating and also periods where it's actually reducing. And at least in the worm, we have now an experimental paradigm to look at what is the biology underlying age restoration. And in terms of HIL-1 and H1O, we see that the upregulation of HIL-1 or H1O is important for inducing this full resilience program, and the subsequent downregulation is necessary to remove the barrier for restoration. So we think we're really exploring this really interesting fasting refeeding mediated reprogramming event, which is happening in an adult organism controlled by nutrients and is in a post-mitotic tissue without stem cells. So we think there's a lot of biology to explore, and we're excited to continue with this. So with that, I'd like to acknowledge amazing supervision and mentorship from Adam Antebi. Also, I've worked together on this project with an amazing PhD student, Anna Diederich. Also great collaboration with Kostas Dimitriadis, Roman Ulrich Müller, as well as David Meyer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting work. We have time for some questions.
I was wondering if you had thoughts about what's getting HIL-1 to its genomic binding sites. Those loci are not super similar at the primary sequence level. Do you hypothesize there's a family of adapters? How else might it be finding its way to where it belongs?
Yes, great question. Yeah, there seems to be some sequence where it is enriched, especially at the transcription termination site. It seems to be recognizing this sequence, but it also could be different adapters. We know some of the upstream regulation of transcription factors that are inducing HIL-1 so that it's expressed only in the fasted state, for example, FOXO or TFEB. But yeah, there's probably a lot of additional regulation with other epigenetic marks that might be guiding it, and maybe crosstalk between other marks where it's maintaining each other.
Okay. We have one more question over there.
Fantastic talk. So the curve that you just showed, to me, it looks very much like this stress response adaptation when you do physical exercise. So I immediately started thinking, is there like a more general principle, like that you find many more mechanisms acting like this?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting concept to explore. I think Vadim Gladyshev also had this paper where he showed that upon stress, biological age increases and then goes back down upon recovery from the stress. And I think this might be also going along the same lines. And I think it points out to how we get back to this baseline is probably really important. And I think understanding this biology can help us to properly get back to baseline and potentially get even further down below baseline.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.